Hello, my pleasure seekers, and welcome to today's episode with the beautiful Angharad Owen, who I'm so excited to interview today. So excited. And today I think we're going to touch all about the importance of sexuality and breathwork and many more juicy things to come. And I know, as my beautiful guests like yourself, this is going to be a hot topic that I know you're going to love and enjoy today. So, Angharad, my darling, thank you for joining me today. And who are you?
Thank you so much for having me. So I am a sex, love and relationships therapist and coach, and I work really somatically at the moment with people's bodies. Every single thing that I do now incorporates breath work so that people can really get out of their monkey minds, get out of their heads and deep into their bodies. So I work a lot with trauma and releasing those layers of trauma that are holding back from being fully in our sexual pleasure and our sexual desire to get to that root juicy essence, as you well know, of that pure power that we have inside of us that is being so underutilized right now in this world. And I really believe it's what we're being starved of. So I'm so happy to be here having this conversation with you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay, so how did you come about finding breathwork yourself? Because I know a lot of people will talk about mindset, blah, 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 boring. We've heard of that. And it's all, as we know, 20% up here and 80% in the body. So how did you come across breathwork?
Yeah, so I'd been on a bit of a healing journey myself. I'd experienced sexual abuse as a young child, and my teenage years were horrific. I just didn't know. When I realized what sex was at 11, 12 years old, I began to realize what had happened to me, all these secrets that had been kept. And emotionally, I did not know how to deal with that. And I didn't really have any support, didn't have a family system to support me. And I just started taking a lot of drugs, really. I was taking class A drugs at 12 years old. I'd be out taking an insane amount of ecstasy pills on a Saturday and Sunday to try and get away from the pain. And for years, all through my teenage years, it was very, very difficult. I had many suicide attempts. I just wanted out from this world. I didn't have any friends. I used to just have sex with anyone all the time. I had chronic UTIs and cystitis. And I think back now, and I'd be having sex with these men in so much pain because I believed that sex was for a man's pleasure. And that was my role. That was my job in this lifetime. And sex and love just didn't go together or merge together for me at all at that point. And life just got progressively worse. I ended up getting cancer at 18 years old, which I believe was the physical manifestation from the trauma and the emotions that were being held in my body that was so deeply repressed inside my cells. And I said to myself, I was like, do you know what? I can't do this anymore. I'm going to give myself 6 months. If I can't heal, then I'm out of this physical world. I just cannot be here anymore. And I went all over the world doing weird and wonderful and wacky things to try and heal, literally. With the weirdest people possible.
Like what? Like what? Can you remember?
Oh my God. I think, I went and studied Taoism in the north of Thailand, which I've gone into further with Mantak Chia and his trainings and things like that. But I never forget at the time I was there and I went to this little center in the middle of Chiang Mai. This was years and years and years ago now. And there was a guy there, like literally lifting 5-kilo dumbbells with his penis. Like all about strengthening the penis. And I was just like, this is quite extreme, you know.
What did you do?
I was gobsmacked. And obviously he was teaching a lot about the jade egg and how to use the jade egg, but 5 kilos. And he was like, yeah, sometimes I up it to 6 and 7 and 8.
It's gonna fall off.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow,
exactly.
Okay.
So all sorts of things like this to do with healing all across the world, from Mexico to Asia, all sorts of things. I then ended up in Rishikesh at a Tantra retreat, which, you know, over the last few years has actually came out as, you know, the guy's been arrested and locked up for what was happening within those spaces. the teachings were very profound. I found the teachings incredible, but it just wasn't a safe environment. It was kind of the, you know, sleep you guru and you'll become enlightened, as so many of these things are. And it was, yeah, it was during that time in Rishikesh in India that I did my first breathwork session. And I went into a space after about 30 minutes of deep, intense, conscious, connected breathing, where my stepfather's face, who abused me, came in front of me. This big, fat, ugly man was stood there, and my body just started punching and screaming out at him. It was this very intense, cathartic response. And it was in that moment, as you said, that I realized, fuck, I've been trying to heal with my mind, which is such a small percentage of my body. There's like this whole 90% of my body that has its own personality structure, that's living as this traumatized child still, and holding on to all this trauma and sensing danger every single second of the day. So it was that moment where I was like, okay, I've got some hope. I had hope that I would actually be able to heal. And yeah, that was the very first moment I did breathwork.
Wow, thank you for sharing. You've just shared a whole lot of very information, so thank you so much. And when you went through that breathwork process with your stepfather, how did you feel afterwards?
I felt lighter. There's such a heavy weight in my body that was dragging me down day to day to day, that there was a lifting, a lightness in my body. The thing for me, that it wasn't a safe space. I wasn't in a safe environment. And now that is paramount to every single thing that I do within my work. It's that there has to be a space of safety created, a container of safety to be able to go through these experiences. So I kind of was slightly re-traumatized. I was staying in like this prison cell hotel room in the middle of India. It wasn't the best situation, but that's what made me go, oh my God, I have to bring this to women in the West who have suffered.
Wow.
So yeah.
And so when you also had cancer as well, have you had cancer a couple of times? I feel like I read.
Yeah, several times. Yeah.
How have you managed to process that through the body? Because that for people will be an absolute light bulb moment, you know, because I feel for everyone that goes through those situations, but not many people look at the body when they do go through that amount of illness or stress on their body, right?
Yeah. I was very fortunate at the age of 18 when I first had my first bout of cancer. I don't know what it was, but something in me was like, don't have the operation, don't have any treatment. I was just a big, full no from my body. And someone had given me the book. The first self-help book I've got was You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
Nice.
Yeah. And where the tumor was sticking out of my head was all related to the keeping secrets. And I realized then at 18, I had so much anger in my body, and something just lodged within me. If you don't let go of this anger, you're not going to heal. And I had to go through that process of releasing that anger and really allowing myself to be angry. You know, we have such a lid put on anger, and there's no safe space to have that expression in this society in general, that I had to take myself off and just be in a deep state of rage. And it was this guttural rage that was coming from deep within my body, within my cells, within my bones, that was just screaming literally out of me. And 3 months after that, the tumor started to shrink within my head. After I went through I was doing no treatment, nothing. I was just going through this space of working the rage through my body and coming to a space of forgiveness. So yeah. And again, with the other cancers that I've had, they've all had an emotional component to them, whether it's been the mother wound, which was a huge one for me. You know, I was always kind of in survival mode from an early age. I was kind of out on the streets at 12 years old, and there was always this deep sense of needing to survive. So I had to go back and process all the emotions that I wasn't able to feel at that time because I was just surviving, to be able to heal from the cancer and give my body a space of rest and peace to be able to heal from, really.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
yeah.
Did breathwork really help you then with the other cancers that you had when you were at an older age? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that practice, as you know, with breathwork, of being able to pendulum through different emotional states. So it's not that you don't want to feel the anger, the sadness, the grief. It's feeling them, but not getting stuck in them. And I find the breath work is incredible for being able to pendulum and titrate between those deeper emotional states, and then taking yourself into the peace, into the joy, and creating those sensations throughout the whole entire body.
I totally agree. I think it's like what they call like the neutrality, isn't it? Where you go through one pain, then you can go through other like pleasure and then pain, and balance out in the two. And that's realistic, right? That's how we deal with these things. It's not all spiritual it's not spiritual bypassing. That's the thing as well.
Exactly.
Got love and light and sprinkle fairy dust that really pisses me off.
Same.
So, yes, exactly, right? If anyone else wants me, I will get my anger out, punch everything. No. So what brought it on for you to obviously do this amount of healing on yourself with like all your experiences from your stepfather? And I cannot begin to imagine what you went through, and how did you have the strength to be able to help other people? Because that's like holding the space for other women when you know it's very close to home for yourself.
Yeah, I think I'd really seen the power and efficacy of this practice. And as you say, so many people are in the space of, I mean, I've been teaching breathwork for 10 years now. So it was before breathwork became a hip thing, you know. Now it's trendy to do breathwork. But at the time, there weren't that many people out there doing it. And it was something very different. As you know, when you go into a breathwork session, there can be a lot of crazy shit going on in that room.
Yes.
Someone's having an orgasm in one end of the corner, the other person's screaming out their grief and pain. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, you don't.
So it was quite kind of wild back then, but I just know that there was a reason why I stayed alive. You know, the amount of times that I should have died, there's a reason why my soul was still here. And I find it very easy now. I have a deep well of empathy and compassion and life experience of being so far deep in that darkness that I'm not fearful of people's darkness anymore. I see it as part of our human experience. So I think that allows me to be able to hold so much intense space for so many people.
I love that. I mean, why do you think people are fearful of each other's darkness?
We have not been brought up in a society at all that's allowed that. And we're we've got this good and bad filter on emotional states, and the fear, the anger, the depression, it's, you know, got this bad filter on it. But really, we have to experience those things to be able to experience the joy, the peace, the light, the love. It's that polarity. Without one, we wouldn't know the other.
Yes. And I think the more people understand that, the more accepting it becomes, right? That's the irony. It's like the chicken and egg situation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they suck it up. How are you? And everyone goes, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine.
Keep going.
You're not fine.
You're clearly not fine. Or even when someone answers, I'm good. I consciously now try not to even answer if like the supermarket, you know, someone at the supermarket asks, I'm good. And sometimes I, you know, I'm very honest with these things. Sometimes my response isn't what they expect. And it's really funny, you know, when you're in like Sainsbury's and you tell them and they're like,
what's the most shocking response you've got? What have you said?
Oh, I can't. I don't know. I'm probably more in Australia, but I think in Bondi I was quite. I would have said, I don't know, like just been really open about, oh, I've had a pretty late night, haven't slept much, had quite a good time with it or something, you know, something like that, where they would be like,
yeah,
because they don't even care. Like they just ask me, hi, how are you? It's just a standard protocol and like their checkout situation. They don't expect, then it spices up their day. You can have a chat and then
exactly.
you know, it's great. Otherwise, sometimes it's like, okay, cool, go. And probably a face of me in the staff room being like, never ask her how she is.
Exactly.
But I think it's so important to, I mean, maybe me read the room sometimes, but just to spice it up a bit, you know, and be like, this is where I'm at. Or if you are, you know, I think we tend to see people who get emotional and cry in public spaces and just kind of ignore it, you know, like, and just walk past them, or, oh my God, put your sunglasses on, pretend they're not there. But actually, like, we all are human. And I think the more, like you said, compassion that you have for someone, the deeper you can connect with people. And it's we're taught that as strangers, it's not safe to talk to another stranger. If someone's crying, like, you want to help them. So I think
Yeah.
we really need to change that in society. And I love to hear that you've kind of have that depth of compassion, because we need more people like you in the world, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's what we're all deep down ultimately craving,
Mhm.
is this truth, this richness to the human experience, which does bring with it that truth as you're talking about.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And so for someone who's listening right now, like a woman, for example, that thinks, okay, you know what, I haven't dealt with any of this in my past. They keep getting flashbacks. It's a very intimidating thing to start from, let alone admit to other people, right? What would you suggest to a listener to start? Because obviously you're at this amazing point in life. I never like to put people on pedestals, but someone would look at you and think, wow, I want to be where she is.
Yeah.
How do I get out where I am now?
Yeah. The first thing that I want to say is that it doesn't have to be really deep and intense and hard. I think so many people right now are kind of like terrified to take that first step for what may come up. And when you embark on this journey, things are going to arise. It's going to be messy sometimes. It's going to be painful sometimes. But as we were talking about before, that can be interweaved with lightness, with hope, with joy, with radiance, with connectedness in between. So if you're terrified of going there, I just want everybody to realize that this is liberation for life, and it changes the way that you experience the rest of your whole entire life. And I have women that we just finished the 6-month Unleash Your You program that I run. We had our last call the other night. One of the women was like, oh my God, she's like, I'm 37. I wish I'd done this years ago. I can't believe I'm waiting till now. And I was like, you're only 37. It's incredible that you've actually gone there and got these tools now, But the first step would probably, for me, I think the best access into the body is, as we're saying, through breath work. So take a step, look for some breath work that's a very supported, safe space, someone that you completely resonate with. And it's really good to have specifically guided sessions, I believe, so that you're actually working with different areas of the nervous system and the body. Going forth from that, it's really important to have that support for integration afterwards as well, because I see so many people going into these ceremonies right now, whether it be ayahuasca or mushrooms or DMT or breath work, and there's no support to follow on from that. Mm-hmm. So it's really important, I believe, to find a container that you resonate with, that for someone that's, trauma informed, that can hold the space for you to go through that process.
I think that's so important to talk about integration. I often I've some friends that create retreats and things, and my first thing is like, what is the integration? And no disrespect, I think about it myself when I've got a breathwork that I'm hosting on the 2nd of June in London, and I think, or as you're talking, I'm like, already you do forget, even when you're doing it, you're sat holding your space for yourself, for others, because you just think, I want to help them and get it done and tick the box and do whatever. But actually, I totally agree. I did ayahuasca last year, and there was no integration afterwards. And this is mainly why I'm back in the UK, because you can't function back into, for me, I couldn't function back into day-to-day life. And I had to go and really put myself out there and sit with a lot of anger and a lot of pain. And I remember talking to the shaman afterwards and being like, I need some support here. And they were like, we're sorry, there's waiting lists for seeing the therapist. And you can't go to a regular therapist, right? Oh yeah, I did an ayahuasca session. I tried that with her, and she thought she was about to literally check me into a nutter's place. Like, she thought, I could see her Googling ayahuasca while I was telling her. And I was like, okay, we're gonna have to switch up therapists here. Like, this isn't good. And but I think that's so important. I think that's like an episode in itself. Like, really, it's a whole new topic.
The amount of people that come to me after they've done ayahuasca and haven't been able to integrate it is off the charts. And off you go back to your day job next day, or took 2 days off, read my book. Like, what? Yeah. Exactly. And it's integrating those visions. It's great to have these visions that we have through ayahuasca and things like that. But ultimately, we are living in this physical body, in this physical world and society. And for me, it's so important to have that, to take action on all these visions that you've seen. It has to be integrated deeply into the nervous system. Otherwise, it's like, you just kind of get stuck and you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. But you're aware of it, and then they're like, take action, you're like a rabbit in headlights.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
And that's why I think breathwork is so powerful when it's done correctly, because there are some breathworks that kind of let you just go up and out, which is beneficial for some things. But for me, it's integrating that back into the body.
Definitely. I find that, what do you do with like some breathwork sessions where you feel like you're in such a deep trance yourself? Because I put myself out for 3 hours this morning where you feel like you're so exhausted by it, because it's the fight and flight, you know. A lot of women, I believe, yeah, exactly, I've been addicted to this fight and flight situation, and when you become relaxed, you feel exhausted because you don't know any different. And
Exactly.
then what are your recommendations to women that experience their first sessions where they're relaxed for the first time, but they don't know how to function? For example, you know, they might want to just stay in bed all day, but actually that's how you feel, that's how you're meant to feel normally.
Yeah. And then the monkey mind comes in and tries to fight that, because it's like, normally I'm like really productive every single day, you know, type A, go.
Yes.
They come and do a breathwork session and their body's like, we don't want this anymore. And it's the body really telling a story. And for me, it's surrender to that, because when you don't, that's when the physical ailments start to come in. That's when the disease starts to cultivate in the body. So really, it's just being able to be so present with it, bringing so much kindness and compassion to your body, and letting your body tell you the story of what it's desiring to do. Yeah. So just approaching yourself with complete compassion and kindness.
I think that for some women as well is like, what? Because we don't realize what kindness is to ourselves. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned obviously your Unleashed program. So let's hear more about Unleashed. What is this all about?
Yeah, so it's called Unleash Your You. I think the 5th year that I ran it, I asked one of the women to rename it for us, and she was like, okay, it's Unleash Your You. That's exactly what we're doing here. So it's really a 6-month journey that helps create the deep inner shifts within women's bodies to get them to a space of feeling passionate, feeling alive, feeling radiant again. And it's through the lens of breathwork and holistic sexuality tools. So I work a lot with the jade egg, with vaginal reflexology, because so much trauma gets trapped within the vaginal canal. And ultimately, women who are disconnected from their sexuality, like, really are at a tremendous disadvantage in this life. They're not accessing that innate primal power source that's we were born with. And, you know, by the patriarchy and everything else, we've been shut down for years and years and years from this source. And the Unleash Your You program is really releasing those layers of trauma from society, from the patriarchy, from our parents, from toxic relationships, from, you know, just being in this world, to really bring women back to their selves, to know who they are, to be confident in who they are, to listen to their intuition, to know when they're a yes and no to having sex or not, to being able to experience those deep internal orgasms where the energy from deep within that vaginal canal powers up through these meridians, through the whole entire body to the brain. And, you know, when you've been out having great sex all night and you haven't slept, and you go to work the next day and you just got so much energy, and people tell, like, oh, you know, you got people go, you got fucked last night, but you know, you had a great night, you had sexual energy running through your body. And there's so many women right now who are not experiencing that, and that's where I find the power from life comes from.
Wow. And do you think that's because I've noticed obviously so much shame that women carry around sex? Like, what women, what sort of women do you help, and what kind of stages are they at? Because this can seem like quite a daunting and intimidating thing. Like, but you and I, we casually talk about yoni eggs. I know all about the yoni eggs, but a woman would be like, what is a yoni, for example? You know, they wouldn't really know what the term yoni means.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. What's kind of the women that are like that do join the course, and what kind of, how advanced I suppose they are in their sexuality journey?
Yeah, so usually it's women who've done some of the inner work before. So they've either done the meditation, the yoga, been doing therapy, they've got to a certain point, but they just feel like something's not quite there, something's not quite locked in, and they haven't worked on their sexuality yet. And it's women who haven't got any sexual desire, women who are in long-term relationships who aren't having sex and that deep level of intimacy and connection with their partners anymore. Just everything's okay, but we'll just like brush the sex part under the table. Anyone who's suffered from sexual trauma, emotional trauma, if you've been abandoned by parents as a child and those wounds are still living deep within your nervous system and body. I have a lot of women who come to me with chronic yeast infections who heal them because they're working with the emotional component. After 6 months of being on the program, people who have dysregulated nervous systems, who are getting triggered a lot. It's kind of quite a broad spectrum, but for someone who's already on this path of self-development but hasn't yet dived into their sexuality.
And is it done all face-to-face or Zoom, or where is it done?
Yeah, it's online. So there's an online portal. Every single thing that I do now is combined with breathwork. So it's deep coaching therapy sessions that are specifically guided. We work through issues like issues with your mother and father, issues with your inner child, lodging safety, love, and belonging, Maslow's hierarchy of needs in the nervous system. Yes. So it's really the first 3 months is that deeper level of healing, and then going on to get into that space of using your sexual energy for different areas of your life.
Wow.
So yeah, it's online. We meet on Zoom every single week for 2 hours. There's one-on-one sessions with myself, and there's a whole online portal and community of women that come together to support each other.
Amazing. And then how do you help with the integration? There you go.
Yeah. So I'm there all the time on the WhatsApp support group. It's literally a journey held by myself for 6 months. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
It's my favorite thing that I do.
I know you look so lit up and excited. So I'm excited. I'm like, I want to invest in it, but I'm also like, I'm doing so much breathwork at the moment. I don't think I'd probably be the best person on there. But so for you then, when is the next course launching? What's kind of your plans? What can we see next from Angharad?
Yeah, so we are launching in June. We're running another round in June. So yeah, anyone who is curious about joining can give me a shout. And yeah, then I'm also doing a few events here in person in Ibiza and Mallorca. And sometimes you can watch out. There's a few things that go on online as well. One-offs.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, honey. And the one question I like to ask all my guests on the show is, what is your favorite pleasure in life?
So this is so random. I'm going with what is flowing through me right now. Organic grass-fed steak for breakfast.
Oh, ooh. What is that, like biohacking or no?
I just love having that protein and eating a big thing of steak for breakfast. And my thing is, everyone thinks I'm probably vegan, which I'm totally not, but yeah, just going to the butchers and the organic butchers and just having that and sitting and savoring with those sprinkles of salt all over it and feeling every single sensation of it just explode in my mouth is.
Oh my God, that's so good. And you do that every day?
Not every day, probably about 3 times a week. Yeah.
Nice. I love that.
And yours? I'm curious.
Ooh, no one has asked me what mine is. Okay, this is probably gonna be just because I'm currently in England and I'm such a water person. Being in the ocean, like I'm having a bath every night right now religiously because I'm like missing water so much. I go to Bournemouth, which is cold, and take my mom to an ice bar. I'm gonna facilitate my mom in the sea doing an ice bath tomorrow.
Amazing.
I'm proud of her for doing it. So
Yeah.
the ocean, I'm missing the ocean so much. Yeah, so the ocean for me is my guilty pleasure right now. And maybe like, I actually love being with a guy in the ocean, so I think that's like one of the best things, unless it's like a sexy situation where you're coming out of the ocean and a wave like crashes down on you. I've had that before, and I'm like, okay, that's really funny. But yeah, that's probably my guilty pleasure.
Making love in caves in the ocean. I've got some fond memories of that.
Ooh, yeah, I did quite a bit of that during lockdown, actually. Yes.
We'll meet in the cave while the drones are out overhead, making sure that we're not out.
Literally. And then the drones see these two people going into the cave and coming out an hour or so later looking a bit flushed. Yes.
Absolutely love
I love that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining today, honey.
Thank you.
Absolute honor and pleasure to have you.
Thank
for
you.
anyone that's looking for you and they can follow you on your journey, where's the best places to find you?
Instagram at the Angharad Owen, and my website www.angharadowen.com.
Amazing. Okay, I'll put all those in the show notes anyway. So for anyone listening, you can find Angharad on those show notes. And for anyone that's going to be in Europe over the summer, check her out. And yeah, June isn't far away, so get signed up to her course and get your stuff. Yes, baby. My pleasure, seekers. Thank you so much for listening today. As always, write me a review, whether it's spicy or vanilla. I welcome all of your thoughts and expressions. And if there's someone you feel who can benefit from this, please share it with a loved one, colleague, or anyone in your life, because I think Angharad has got so much magic to help in the world with us all being in our pleasure. So thank you.